Good morning, everyone. So yesterday saw the winner of the 2022 Route de Rhum crowned as King Charles for a record-breaking performance that was just simply faultless in its execution. It had to be, because when you have got Francois Gabard breathing down your neck, looking to exploit any mistake, you need your A game. And Charles Caudrelier sailed a magnificent race and deserves the global recognition and plaudits from his peers. Gabard finished second, just a few hours behind, and in third place, Thomas Covild on board Sedibo completed the podium. Let's have a quick look.
The coronation of King Charles. Charles Caudrelier has won the 12th edition of the Route de Rhum in the all-team class in the dead of the Guadeloupe night.
9h, 2 minutes, 25 secondes UTC.
Un exploit
But it's not just a solo victory. It's not the victory of one sailor today, it's the victory of the whole team. It's really the story of the Gitana team. This race was won together. The skipper beat Francis Joyon's 2018 record by over 18 hours. With his name on the Route de Rhum trophy, Caudrelier enters ocean racing legend. A few hours later, Francois Gabard took second for the second time running. How do I feel with second? It's funny because it's really different. I think it's taking me almost longer to realise it than it did 4 years ago, but it's amazing. Maybe it means more long-term this time because it's a new boat, whereas last time it was at the end of the life of my previous boat. Thomas Covild is expected later in Guadeloupe to complete the podium in the all-team category.
In the IMOCA class, the leading group are now into the trade winds and should start to pick up speed. Charlie Dallin's lead has shrunk to just a mere 25 miles and the pack is closing in. The first 7 boats are all within 100 miles. In a moment, we'll be talking to Simon Fisher, navigator of the 11th hour racing team IMOCA 60, who has been watching the Route de Rhum closely, analysing performance, but also reliability in the fleet to learn as much as possible before the ocean race. It's a fascinating interview and his insight into the IMOCA fleet is just superb. In the Class 40, as the Azores High resumes its normal position over the Azores, the Class 40 fleet are finally enjoying some downwind conditions. The trade winds should start to fill in later today and finally they'll be able to point their bows towards Guadeloupe. The top 8 boats are within 85 miles and all of the favourites are still in contention. My top 3 picks of Paprec, SNEF or SNEF and Keguanier fill the podium places with Johan Rhum still 30 miles ahead of Xavier McCabe. Although looking at the tracker, Xavier's position slightly to the north and out to the west could see him reduce that lead over the next few hours. Let's have a quick look at the tracker. Okay, so we're here with the IMOCA fleet, and this was the tracker just as of this morning, and you can see they're now comfortably into this trade wind. There's still this sort of light patch which is splitting the sort of second pack behind the lead pack, and expect to see the lead group stretch out a little bit now on their way to Guadeloupe. The trades are still got this sort of oscillation, a little bit like a sort of meandering river, and so it's going to be critical to get on the right jibe towards Guadeloupe, and expect to see these boats sort of jibing their way down to Punta Prit. But if you look, Charlie Dallin is just got a slender lead over Linked Out and Chiral. But as we find out from Simon later, these modern scow bow IMOCAs, the latest generation of Chiral, Biotherm, Holcim, PRB, just expect these boats to lift up their skirts a little bit in the downwind conditions. They've been designed to go fast downwind, optimized for the Vendee Globe conditions, the Southern Ocean. So it'll be really interesting to see how Charlie Dallin gets on and whether he can hold off these newer designs over the next few days. So a quick look at the Class 40 tracker, and again you can see how tightly bunched this lead group are, all within 80 miles of each other, and just in this little sort of, I guess, the reformation of the Azores High as it moves across. There's still a light wind ridge beneath them, but that should fill in as the day progresses, and their speeds should just pick up. Looking closely at that position of SENF, Xavier McCabe, up to the north and possibly slightly west of Johan Rhum. Expect over the next 4 hours to possibly see that lead close a little bit as he's pointing his bow towards Guadeloupe. Okay, and just quickly onto the forecast. This is the current situation on the ECMWF this morning. And you can see that high pressure is gradually moving east over towards the Azores, and the trade winds are starting to fill in. If we just fast track to Friday lunchtime, you can see the position of the Azores High now well over the Azores archipelago, and the trade winds are looking much more steady. But you can still see this sort of oscillation, this sort of meandering of the trades between the sort of southeast trades through to the northeast trades. So really critical that they're on the right jibe. Difficult to always position themselves on the right jibe, so expect to see quite a lot of jibing going on as they're heading their way down to Guadeloupe. And then let's look into Saturday lunchtime. Again, the Azores High is really filling nicely, breeze up to 25, 30 knots. And certainly the IMOCA fleet and the Class 40 fleet are going to be, within their last week. I would expect the IMOCA fleet to be in sometime around Sunday, and the Class 40 fleet probably Tuesday, Wednesday next week. Just have a quick look at Sunday, and again, strong bit of pressure just down towards the West Indies there. Squally conditions, still got to be vigilant, still got to keep an eye on the cloud formation and not take any chances. But I think it's going to be a magical next week or so at sea with these boats in fast running conditions. Okay, so let's bring in my guest, Simon Fisher, 5 times Ocean Race sailor, about to set off on his 6th race as navigator for 11th Hour Racing Team, the IMOCA 60. He's no stranger to the IMOCA class, having competed in the Transat Jacques Vabre with Justine Mitrou, and still, I think, a leading contender in the IMOCA World Series. So welcome, Simon. I hope you're getting some pretty well-earned downtime after a very, very busy period preparing for the Ocean Race. But I suspect that's probably not the case. What are you currently working on?
Hey, Conrad. Yeah, nice to see you again. We're actually just spinning up again here in Concano with 11th Hour Racing. We've just gone back in the water after the shore team have been working night and day to do our last little refit, which is going to be our last little refit before we start the Ocean Race. So it's been a really busy period for the shore team. Now we're back in the water, and looking forward to a good training session, which is our sort of last big training session before we get into the Ocean Race. So if the weather behaves itself, we'll be off south to Cascais tomorrow to sunnier climes, and then hopefully we've got a good few weeks of testing ahead of us. So busy days ahead, but some good sailing as well, hopefully.
Brilliant. I guess a chance to put the boat into sort of final configuration mode for the race. Now, the Route de Rhum has been underway, and I'm sure you've been watching the tracker pretty avidly. It's a chance to watch some of your Ocean Race competitors in the IMOCA class. I think I probably know the answer to this, but why choose to sit this one out this time round?
Certainly for our team, our focus is firmly on the Ocean Race, and I guess we are a sort of crude sailing team who maybe had a little adventure into short-handed sailing last year. So really for us, it's all our focus in the Ocean Race and being best prepared as we can for that race. So without the the pull of a French sponsor wanting us to be in the Route de Rhum, it actually gives us a little bit more time to focus on our training, focus on preparing the boat and that sort of stuff, and hopefully we can be relaxed and ready when we get to the start line in Alicante. It's I take my hat off to the other competitors. They've actually got a pretty busy period ahead of them with the Route de Rhum, and then they got to get the boat back from Guadeloupe, and then the preparations in Alicante. So they got a pretty busy period. So hopefully for us, it maybe creates a bit of an advantage, but also there's nothing quite like racing. So I'm sure they come back fairly battle ready.
Yeah, absolutely. What what have you learned from the race so far?
It's been one hell of a race to watch. It's like the conditions have been absolutely brutal. Um, no, it's been interesting watching the first part and then battling through the front. It looks like it's been really quite hard work, but plenty of survival, plenty of incidents, and I guess the two things we're really trying to monitor when we're watching this race. So the two things we follow the closest is a performance, and we have a fairly good idea of who performs well and who doesn't, and who's the reference and what have you. So we're looking at the performance, but we're also looking at the reliability. And our sailing team WhatsApp group has been burning white hot over the last few days when they were going through the windy stuff, just analysing all the incidents and what's broken, then going down on the boat looking at how we could protect against something like that. So no, it's all been really relevant, and there's some good lessons to be learned. I mean, sort of performance and reliability are the two things that are probably going to win you this race. So we've been trying to follow both of those things as closely as possible.
I can imagine that's super helpful with all the the communications and things coming back off the boats as well. And obviously the sort of boats you're keenly watching, the boat's very similar to Malama, your own boat for the Ocean Race, Biotherm and Holcim PRB. What are the differences, first of all, that you're aware of?
We're all quite similar. I mean, actually, the majority of the designs, I guess, are Vendee designs in our race. So, but there are subtle differences in the foils, and probably slightly subtle differences in the hull shapes as well. But I think, we all sort of perform fairly similarly. But obviously we've been watching them closely, and they've been going very well. Sort of. Biotherm's been quite impressive because they have been quite late. Everything's quite new, but Paul's done a great job of just like getting on the boat, getting on with it, and sailing fast, not worrying about all the all the small details, and just doing the good job well. Yeah, we know Kevin's very fast as well, and is in a very good boat. So he's done a good job as well.
Yeah, it's been really interesting watching that sort of philosophy. Really, sometimes you just want to have all your ducks lined up, all the preparation there before you start this race, and not really start with a sort of boat building kit as you're getting out on the water. But Paul's just he takes it in his stride, it seems. Now go on.
He's done a fantastic job, and we raced against him in the Azimuth. Obviously, that was the first time we all got to line up, and his boat was literally fresh out the wrapper. And I think when you watch the YouTube videos of their race back, they were fixing everything 10 minutes. So to sort of in a month got everything race ready, and to be right up there at the front of the fleet in the Route de Rhum's a pretty impressive effort.
Yeah. Now both boats are later builds than Malama, but probably more focused towards the Vendee Globe than the Ocean Race. Is that correct, and is that an advantage for your campaign?
Yeah, I think so. I think certainly with the whole actually Biotherm is actually a sister ship to Linked Out with a bit of a bow modification, and she actually has the foils from 11.1, so we're actually quite familiar with her foil package. Yeah, so it's sort of something of a known quantity. So that in that sense, is a good reference point for us. And then Holcim is what started off as Switchback. That's again that. But from its initial design as an ocean race boat, it had quite a big bow modification. More, I call it the spatula in the bow, just to help it over the waves in the south, and it's got slightly different foils. It's sort of interesting to watch the relative performance of those two. We're also you can't sort of talk about the IMOCA fleet without mentioning Pivia, who although it isn't in the ocean race, is really the reference for the class.
Yeah,
and we've been, we sort of share a building here in Concarneau with the Apivia team, and and in all the sailing we've done against them, they and for the class, they really are the speed reference. So it's always interesting to see if people are keeping up and how they're going versus Charlie, who does a fantastic job.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's what's really impressed me is that sort of lead group and the fact that these new boats, are doing so well, so fresh out of the wrapper. Perhaps no surprise with Charlie, given his track record over the last few years, but it's still just impressive to see. I mean, he's been considerably quicker in the sort of opening 3 or 4 days of the race, and now obviously it's a bit of a transition into this new southern side of the Azores High. But I don't know. Do you think he's going to stretch out again? He just seems to be fast.
yeah, no, he's certainly quick, and he's very, very quick upwind and reaching. I think it's actually getting to an interesting point in the race now, because it is going to be. I think all the boats, hopefully by the end of today, are probably sort of established in the trade winds and into some downwind sailing. So that's when actually we might see some differences between the designs, and obviously these boats with more of an eye on the Vendee sort of tried to tweak their designs to being more VMG running. So it's going to be interesting to see how obviously the new Chiral performs, which is quite a sort of scoured out manoir design, and we've seen them being quite quick VMG downwind so far. So it'll be interesting to see how Charlie goes against those guys, and then obviously how Malizia goes, who's another boat that's done a whole shape around about trying to be fast in the south. So when she's in the breeze, it'll be interesting to see how she's going. I think it's
really.
had a slightly tougher race than some of those other guys, but it's going to be interesting to see how he comes back and goes in the trade winds.
Yeah, yeah. Now, one performance that you probably really pleasing you is that of Justine Matreau, which has just been, I think, outstanding. I guess you're not surprised.
No. I mean, I've obviously done lots of sailing with Justine, having done the two-handed circuit with her last year, and she's obviously an important part of our fully crewed team here as well. But yeah, she's done a great race. She's and hasn't really surprised any of us, because we know she's a machine. No one sails harder than Juju, that's for sure. But yeah, hats off. She's done a great race. I mean, I think she's been sailing that boat since the summer. I think her first race in it was the Azimuth, and then into the route to Rhum. So, but she's up there mixing it with the top guys, which is incredible performance.
Yeah, really, really, really good. So it's been a pretty tactical race to watch, but the leaders seem to be making all the right moves. Would you have done anything different had you been out there?
No, it's been interesting. I mean, like when I ran some of the routes before the start, there were all sorts of crazy routes that wanted to go downland and then Bermuda and then down, trying to avoid all this weather. But no, I think the fleet's generally, certainly the leading pack's done what we all expected them to do, and try and get themselves south initially, just to try and avoid the worst of the fronts, and make life a bit easier. But it's all on a relative scale. And then then it's been interesting. Once they got through the fronts and down, they've obviously been fighting to get through the ridge off the Azores high pressure. But actually, we've seen a little bit more rotation on close to the centre, it was given those guys on the west a gateway. I think the guys on the east have had a slightly tougher time, but no, I think they've sailed a good race, and they've certainly been quite tricky. Just looking at the speeds on the race course in the last couple of days, you check in one time and they'll be doing 15, 16. Even 20 knots sometimes, and then you look again and they're doing 10, 11. So it's obviously pretty cloudy, pretty squally, and
really.
I imagine they're all pretty tired.
Yeah, very, very much so. And then it looks further down track, like the the high establishes itself, and the trades look really decent for the second period. What do you expect from the second half of the race?
Yeah, they're all into the trade winds now, so you'd like to think they've got a slightly easier race, but things, there's always plenty of nuance in there. I'm sort of having a little look at the routes this morning, and it actually looks at the sort of chasing pack have probably got a slightly, maybe a slightly easier run of it, and a bigger push in the trade winds within the leading guys. So we might see the sort of leading pack of first few boats having to do a bit more jibing, having to work a bit harder to get in the best pressure. Whereas I think the sort of pack behind with Benjamin Dutroux and Boris and Yanni Verstappen and those guys are probably going to get to enjoy a nice long port tack as a big push comes through in the trade wind. So I think it's going to be a tough race. I think that the leaders are out there, and I think they'll be hard to catch. But the guys coming in from behind, I think could enjoy quite a fast period. So it'd be interesting to watch. There's still quite a lot of cloud and stuff out there as well. So with the push in the cloud runs, it could be a bit squally. So yeah, it looks like there's be plenty to keep them on their toes still.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the trades are quite oscillating quite a bit between a sort of almost a southeast and a northeast and so on. So I guess it's quite critical that they're on the right jibe at the right time. And is it? I mean, do you think they can predict some of that, or is it just are we going to see a lot of jibes in the second half of the race?
Yeah, I think they'll probably have to trust their routing a bit. I think it looked like it's slightly trickier for the guys who are leading. And probably maybe more jibes, and then certainly the guys a bit further back probably get a slightly easier run of it, and you just do a big long port tack to get them sort of down south. Yeah. But the nice thing is at least the trade winds are getting more robust. This sort of ridge has been bothering the fleet for quite some time, but it looks like the high sort of establishes itself, gets a bit stronger, and gets plenty of flow around it. So looks like it's going to give good pressure, and I think for probably the first 15 boats or something, it's another 4 days of racing.
Yeah, and just briefly, let's just touch on the Class 40s. I don't know if you've been following them at all, but impressive speeds upwind, considering they've been upwind for a week. The leaders are right in that middle bunch of IMOCAs. It's just
no, exactly. And I guess the one to watch has been Johan Rhum. He stopped, did his 4 hour, served his 4 hour penalty for being OCS, and then it's just motored through the fleet. And it's probably 30 miles ahead again now, which has been incredible.
Yeah, it's a really super exciting class, I think, for both round the world racing and some of these transatlantics.
It looks really interesting. And their upwind performance has been, impressive, given that, they've all sort of evolved to these scale boats. And I mean, I guess the sort of accepted thing was, waterline length is good, and but we've certainly seen in our class these scale boats, a lot of them perform just fine upwind, and we're foil assisted, and then we're seeing these Class 40s that don't have the foils still going very well upwind. So it's definitely good to see some new ideas and them working so well.
Huge thanks to Simon Fisher for his interview and his insights this morning. Let's have a quick look at the routing before we go. So we'll start off with the IMOCA fleet, and this was the position of Charlie Dallin this morning. And you can see, so pretty good trade winds, putting in a jibe to the west, and then just playing these shifts as the wind sort of oscillates between the sort of northeast, southeast trades, and then eventually looks like getting out to the western side before coming in on quite a long port jibe in from the north to Guadeloupe. And if we have a quick look at the Class 40s, you can see they're sort of still got this ridge to cross, but it does fill in behind them from the sort of southeast, and then they've got quite a lot of sort of southerly jibe to get in, and looks like almost a one jibe straight in all the way because of that southeast nature of the trades. So that's it for today. Slightly extended version because of that in-depth interview with Simon Fisher. There's another part to that interview when we talk about the Ocean Race, but I'll save that for another time. See you tomorrow.